30 years. Here. Surely the very definition of hard time. Eric says after authorities uncovered a plot to have him killed, he was transferred to the infamous Modelo prison and became a target for other inmates.
People tried to plant drugs in my cell. People tried to put, at one point, weapons in my cell, and then they would go tell the guards. And they constantly were looking for a way to be able to justify sending me to solitary confinement block.
And as days became weeks and then months, Eric's promised appeal seemed to go nowhere.
You're not fighting this alone.
So Eric's family publicized his plight far and wide. A YouTube segment, a slick website, appearances on television.
You last saw your son on Friday. How is he holding up?
Which they hoped would pressure the Nicaraguan authorities. And all the while, Eric had no idea how long his descent into hell was going to last. His appeal had been expected for months. Would his case ever be reviewed?
Every time there was a delay in the appeal, it was like a stab in the heart. My life, I lived it, in week-long blocks. And they would announce that they were going to, present the resolution in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and nothing would happen. It just twisted my guts and my heart. It hurt so bad to wait for these, the delays it's indescribable.
And yet he did describe it graphically in his prison journal, which his family turned into a blog.
The best analogy I have come across for being locked up here is that it's like being buried alive. It's like having a cave collapse around you, leaving just enough room to breathe and touch your toes. At first you are shocked and terrified. Time and space come to mean something totally different than before.
4 months into his sentence, he was coming apart at the seams.
The noise is traumatic. It's like being in an industrial factory with metal doors slamming. 5 or more different kinds of music at full blast at the same time, and crazy inmates screaming at 4:30 a.m. just to be jerks and wake people up. At times it drives you nuts. I've been driven to the point where I have to sit down in my cell, cover my ears, and focus on my breathing just to keep it together.
Eric was struggling to keep it together physically too, on a meager diet of rice and beans.
The food is not enough. It is not uncommon to find cockroaches and fingernails in the rice. Yesterday, the doctor diagnosed me with gastritis and intestinal parasites, for which I am now taking meds. My whole abdominal area aches. It's freaky being ill like this in prison.
Then, after a year in prison, finally, a ruling of innocence. He had won his appeal. And yet, for 5 days he waited, still in prison, as angry Nicaraguans turned their fury on those appeals judges, and the government ordered an investigation into how they reached their decision. His mom, Maggie, beyond frustration.
Why is he still in a prison?
Finally, in a sudden rush, Eric was released. But even then, he didn't know if he would get out of the country alive.
You had a group of people who were protecting you and getting you to an airport and getting a private plane that flew out of there fast.
It was a dangerous situation, and we had to take the necessary precautions.
You wore a bulletproof vest?
Yeah.
For good reason, probably.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Finally, Eric arrived home in Nashville just before Christmas and into the arms of his mom.
I got my mom's back. It's the best Christmas present ever.
We were relentless. We weren't going to let go. We just fought as best we knew how.
When we left the last time, I remember thinking to myself, that guy's chances in there are not good. Here you are.
It's a miracle that I survived.
What was your state of mind in those dark days?
You have to become a warrior to survive those kind of situations. Those prisons are very dangerous. So you really do have to kind of adopt, a stronger, harder demeanor.
Put on a kind of a brittle mask.
I don't know if it's a mask, it's real. You gotta do whatever you gotta do to stay alive.
And coming out the other end of the tunnel, when did you feel free?
I still don't feel free. I'm out of prison and I'm out of Nicaragua, but they continue to persecute me. They're now threatening to throw the judges in jail that signed and ruled in my favor. My case is now being seen by the Supreme Court.
That means Eric's innocence could be put in doubt again, he says, while Doris's real murderer might be free to murder again.
There's a very good chance that I'll be considered a wanted man in Nicaragua and potentially in the Central American region, and that's not justice. I'm an innocent man, and that's not freedom.
But for now, he says, he is grateful to his family, to those appeals judges, to the soft bed waiting at home.
My first hot shower in, over a year. I slept deeper than I think I've ever slept in my life. The first night after I was a free man. You can't appreciate your freedom until you've had it taken away and you've had to fight to retrieve it.